bearing fruit through connection with God. In this parable, Matthew chapter 21, 33 to 43, Jesus teaches us about the vital connection between bearing fruit and being intimately connected with God. The vineyard owner represents God. The vineyard symbolizes the world. The tenants symbolize humanity. And the fruit signifies the good works and the righteousness that flows from a close relationship with God. In the parable, it literally means the vineyard is the Israel. The vineyard owner and God's ownership of our lives. The vineyard's owner signifies God, who is the rightful owner and caretaker of our lives and this world. He cares for the humanity. Therefore, he sent the prophets, God's messengers, the kings, to Israel. Just as the vineyard owner entrusted the vineyard to the tenants, God entrusts us with the responsibility of stewarding our lives and the world he created and where we live. Do we realize God's responsibility to us to be faithful, to be accountable to our lives? Bearing fruit as evidence of connection with God. The purpose of the vineyard is to bear fruit, reflecting the purpose of our lives to produce good works and righteousness that glorify God. When we live in the world, there is so much of complication, so much of temptation. We are constantly face the crossroad experience. We bear fruit when we are connected with God. Just as a vine can only bear fruit when it remains connected to the vineyard, we can only bear spiritual fruit when we remain connected to God through faith and obedience. In the modern terms, if you want to have the internet connection and connectivity, you need to have the good Wi-Fi internet system. Today we cannot function without the internet, without water, without the air. Same, we cannot produce fruit if we are not connected to God through faith and obedience. The tenants and humanity's responsibility. The tenants in this parable of the landowner and tenants represents humanity. Each and every one of us given a role and responsibility within the vineyard. Humanity is called to cultivate the vineyard, the world, and to bear fruit of love, compassion, justice, and mercy through our actions and interactions with God's mercy and grace. Do we understand our responsibility? Do we understand our accountability as humanity who produce fruits of love, compassion, and justice and mercy? Rejection of God's messengers and Jesus. The tenants' mistreatment of the owner's messengers symbolizes humanity's historical rejection of God's prophets and guidance through the time. Jesus, referred to as the son of the owner, represents God's ultimate revelation to humanity. His rejection and death on the cross emphasize humanity's profound failure to recognize and embrace God's ultimate message of love and salvation. The people of Israel rejected the religious teachers became false teachers. But here, the rejection of God's messengers and Jesus is portrayed powerfully in this parable. Jesus, referred to as the Son of the Owner, represents God's ultimate revelation to humanity. His rejection and death on the cross emphasize humanity's profound failure to recognize and embrace God's ultimate message of love and salvation. We hear in John chapter 3 verse 16, he says, God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that we may believe and have fullness of life in him. Embracing Jesus, the cornerstone for fruitful lives. Jesus, the cornerstone, rejected by the builders, signify the foundational role Jesus played in our lives. He has to play a vital role in our lives. To bear fruit, we must embrace Jesus as the cornerstone of our faith and build our lives upon his teachings, grace, and love. Let's emphasize the aspect to bear fruit in our lives. We may be intimately connected with God, just as a vine must remain connected to the vineyard to bear fruit. The question for this week you can ask after the Sunday liturgy or this Holy Mass is, are we truly connected to God, the ultimate vine, through our faith, prayer, and obedience? Do we recognize God's ownership of our lives and the responsibilities he has entrusted to us to bear fruit in this world? Let's challenge ourselves to assess our own actions and ask, are our lives bearing the fruits of love, compassion, justice, mercy that come from a close relationship with God? Finally, may we embrace Jesus as the cornerstone of our faith, allowing his teachings and example to guide our lives and produce abundant and meaningful fruit in the vineyard of the world. May we ask God in earnest prayer for his grace and strength to remain connected to him and to bear fruits of righteousness and build our lives upon the firm foundation of Jesus Christ, our cornerstone. We can only bear fruit through connection with Jesus Christ. Bear fruit through connection with God.